A study in 2001 by Kaplan and Narayanan found out that businesses actually think that all customers are profitable. But the reality is that some customers actually consume more through customer support, customization, and service demand. Their research argues that identifying and avoiding unprofitable customers is just as important as acquiring new ones. This supports the idea that poor client selection and not just poor execution can actually reduce profitability in your business. Now, most agencies lose a lot of money not just on bad work, but on clients they should have never said yes to. And the truth is that the warning signs are always there. The red flags are always glaring. But the problem is that a lot of people are still not trained to see those signs. And that's why in this video, I'm going to be talking about how to spot a nightmare client before you sign them. Nobody buys a house without first inspecting the house. You don't put your furniture into the house and then later go and check if the foundation is cracked. You go as far as hiring a lawyer, an agent, and even an engineer to come check the house for you. Check all the rooms, check the plumbing work, check the wiring, and making sure that everything is in place. It doesn't matter whether you notice it before you bought that house. Once you sign those papers, problems now become yours. And so the question is, why don't you do due diligence before you sign any client? The project sounds good, the budget sounds good, everything sounds good, and then you sign on the spot. Then weeks later, you start to regret what you actually signed up for. And the thought that comes to your mind is, if only you knew who the client was before you signed them in the first place. But the truth is that from the very first conversation you had with that client, the red flag was glaring. You just chose to ignore it. Here's what that looked like the one time I didn't do my background research on the client enough. $2,000 paid upfront with no negotiation always feels like a win. But the problem is that the brief for the entire project was three words: just make it pop. And when I asked what that actually meant or what the result is supposed to look like, the answer from the client was, "You are the expert, figure it out." The first draft of edit came with a feedback: "This isn't it." Same with the second, same with the third, and same with the fourth. In fact, by the fourth round, they were not trying to review the project anymore. They were trying to feel something. And nothing I ever sent was actually going to make them feel something because there was never a clear target in the first place. And I'll say this because it's actually easy to lose sight of this when you just want the work. Every single project needs a target, a common goal that binds both you and the client that you can both picture. If a client is asking for results or they hand you a goal that you don't understand, ask for clarity and ask over and over and over again if you need to. But if you've asked more than 10 times and the project is still seeming vague, then that's not a communication problem. That's probably just a sign that the project isn't for you or the client isn't the right fit. Now, one important balance to have is that one bad sign alone doesn't mean the client is actually the problem. A bank doesn't refuse to lend money to someone just because they've never borrowed before. Having no history at all is not a red flag, it's just a blank slate. And treating that like danger might mean you turning back a lot of people who would have been the perfect fit for your business. What actually moves a bank or a lender to give you a loan is actually pattern and not a single data point. For them, one missed payment years ago almost means nothing. But a string of missed payments across every account that this individual has ever held actually means something to a bank or a lender. Vetting a client actually works the exact same way. So the next time something feels a little bit off in a discovery call, don't reject the client over it. They could probably still be figuring things out. Just make sure this is something you take note of and watch if it's a pattern or something that happens over and over. So once you start watching out for pattern, how can you really tell that your client is actually going to be a nightmare? Number one, watch how they negotiate after you've already said yes. A client who asks for a discount is totally normal. That's just business. But a client who asks for discounts, takes it, and then starts to look for more free things in your business to be able to exploit is a big red flag. Number two, you want to listen to how they talk about people they've worked with in the past. One bad story about a bad agency experience is normal, right? Everybody has had a rough experience one way or the other. But 5 different agencies, 5 identical stories with no form of or some sort of ownership by the client is a red flag. Because I'll tell you what, it actually takes two to tango. Number three, you want to notice whether they can actually land on a target. Not knowing your numbers on day one is absolutely normal. It's fine. Most clients are still trying to figure out their way through their business and they need a lot of clarity. But after you offer to help with that clarity and they still keep shying away from the question, that is a big red flag. Every project needs a timeline and it needs a deadline. It also needs a specific cost attached to it. That's not a new rule. That's a standard practice that has been in the game for a long time. And so it seems so little, but it's actually something you need to pay attention to 100%. The moment you're able to convince yourself that a client is an exception because their money is good or because they seem nice, then you signed up yourself for a total mess. Ignore all the red flags for the right price, and in no time you'll be paying the right price. Doing due diligence on anything at all, including a client, doesn't exist so that you can reject every client out there, but it helps you notice the cracks in the foundations before you actually get into the business. There's a reason businesses invest so much money in qualifying customers before they acquire them. Research on customer profitability has shown that not every customer actually gives value. Some customers quietly consume more resources than you actually can allocate to them. And they do this through endless revisions, constant support, delayed approvals, and unclear expectations. On invoice, they look like the highest paying customers, but operational cost wise, they are the most expensive customers. It is always cheaper to walk away from a bad client during the first conversation or the first contact than it is to fire them after they've already taken your time, your energy, your team's attention, and your team's confidence in being able to do that work. If you found yourself as a business owner or a professional constantly being drained by the wrong kind of clients, no matter how good your work is, book a free call. Let's help you transform that.